6 to 22.
Not 18.
Yeah?
Isn't it Leviticus 18?
I think it's 18. Yes, it's Leviticus 18, sorry. It's Leviticus 18, I'm sorry. Verses 6 to 6 to yeah, 6 to 22. No one is to approach any close relative to have sexual relations. Your close relative, you mustn't have sexual relations with him or her. A brother should not have sexual relationship with a sister. Do not dishonor your father by having sexual relationship with your mother. She is your mother. Do not have relations with her. So these are things that God has forbidden. Even though they are man and women, they are not allowed. A father, a son, should never dishonor the father by having sexual relationship with the mother. Do not have sexual relations with your father's wife. Yes, you're a man. Your father's wife is a woman. But the Bible says you are not allowed to have that kind of a relationship. Verse 9 says, do not have sexual relations with your sister. Either your father's daughter or your mother's daughter, whether she was born in the same home or elsewhere. And that's why when Christians want to marry, they find out the background of the children. To whom do you want to get married? Don't you know that you're a relation to this person? It's not possible. So even though you are a relation to that person, even though you want to marry the person, if you have that filial love, that family tie between you, you cannot marry that person. Verse 11 says, do not have sexual relations with the daughter of your father's wife, born to your father. She is your sister. Verse 13 says, do not have sexual relations with your mother's sister, because she is your mother's close relative. Do not dishonor your father's brother by marrying his wife to have sexual relations with her. She is your aunt. Your aunt is a woman. You're a man. You're not expected to marry your aunt. Oh, do not have sexual relations with your daughter-in-law. She is your son's wife. She does not have relations, so do not have relations with her. And now I want to move on to verse 22 quickly. Do not lie with a man as one lies with a woman. Do not lie with a man as one lies with a woman. You are not expected to have sexual relationship with a man, just as a man will have sexual relationship with a woman. So, these are points from the Bible. I am sure that from what I have read, coming from this good book giving us as a guide, the Christian Council has asked us this evening to point out to you that the Bible says no to same-sex marriage. The Bible says a man should marry a woman and a woman should marry a man. At this point, I think I've spoken a lot. I have two other people to speak up on this matter. They have their own views and they want to share their views with you listeners and viewers. I will first of all ask Dr. Uzo to give his views about this topic?
Thank you very much, moderator. And while you were talking and all that, I think a few things came up. I think as a doctor, I need to make a few comments on them very quickly before I take on. When you mentioned about adoption, so we don't give the impression that it's wrong to adopt, because lots of children depend on loving fathers and mothers, taking them on in their homes. So I want viewers to get that perspective, that we're not here to condemn adoption. That lots of children, that's their only hope of having families. Lots of children out there on the street, they're looking for fathers and mothers to take them on into their homes. I think what we are saying is that we cannot substitute same-sex marriage for the marriage that God has instituted.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I'm sure we understand that the happiness of a man we talked about includes the woman that is also married in that home. So those people that are married according to God's ordinance, the marriage is for their happiness, not necessarily for the man. So people don't misunderstand. The issue of homosexuality is quite topical, as we all know, and it's no longer a matter confined to religious people or to church, but it's a huge issue. It has political issues surrounding it. It has economic issues, it has cultural, traditional issues, and more importantly, which is what I stand here for, research, scientific things about it. Up until, in the UK, for instance, up until the 1860s, homosexuality was punishable by death. And after that, it was commuted to jail terms and all sorts of sufferings. But it was around the 1960s that it's no longer criminalized. So if anyone openly declares himself to have interest in people of the same sex with him or her, there's no law against it in most of those developed countries, starting from the 1960s. And then what followed that was a review by psychological associations, psychiatrists, because prior to that, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Diseases, which is a way to define several mental disorders, had actually categorized same-sex behavior or homosexuality as a mental illness, but it's no longer recognized as a mental illness, but it's referred to as a sexual orientation. And this is been subjected to several kinds of studies and research and reviews, people trying to understand what exactly underlies these kind of behaviors. And the interesting thing in all the studies done is that regardless of the angle from which people have looked at it from the point of view of whether people are born like this, so are they genetically predetermined in the wombs of their mothers that they are going to be attracted to the people of the same sex, or is it related to hormonal factors? So there are some chemicals that our bodies bring out. Are those the chemicals that make people want to get an orientation towards people of the same sex, have an attraction to people of the same sex, or is it cultural, environment? But all these studies, as carefully done as they are, have not come up conclusively with what is the cause of homosexuality or same-sex attraction. But what is clear is that those of us who watch people, who watch children develop, as a pediatrician, I'm so keen about child development with my special interest in neurology. One of the things we see when people are developing is that there are several stages of development. And what counselors, people who work with same-sex married people or homosexuals that want to come out of that behavior, what they have found is that there are 4 classical steps that are involved in eventual development of whatever we call a sexual orientation. The first is a fantasy. Most people fantasize. Just imagine, what does this look like? And it might be determined by what is prevalent in the environment, or what they see on television, what they read in books, what they hear people say, and then behavior. People can start practicing or experimenting with those, whether or not they hear them. Even at the childhood stage, some children experiment with all kinds of things. You might see children of the same sex trying to touch themselves or trying to act as if they are husbands and wives. It's just a kind of experimentation that doesn't mean anything. And a large majority of people who pass through these stages end up normal. I mean, in quotes, normal. That's they end up being heterosexuals. They have attraction for people of the opposite sex.